Irache Garcia, she will be putting the introductory speech and the keynote speech to you now. I would just like to thank you all. I mean, we are a lot of us here from the Western Balkans, from EU countries, from, I mean, Georgia, Moldova, Ukraine. We have gathered a lot of us to discuss and to maintain this momentum for the enlargement process. That's the most important. That's what this political family pledges for. We need to keep the bar high, keep the challenge high. We cannot let go at this moment, even if one might argue that this came for the worst regions, for the worst reasons. Of course, the war in Ukraine was not certainly the reason why we wanted to bring enlargement to the top of the priorities, but we will keep on fighting to maintain enlargement as a priority yet again after a decade of almost frozen evolution in this sense. And that's what the group wants to say to the regions, to these possible enlargement countries. That's what we want to say also to the EU, because we also have to do our own homework, as you know, and Irache will certainly refer to that. We want the process to continue as soon as possible. There are important actions to be taken and decisions by the Council just in a few days from now, and this is also the reason why we decided to gather here today to also mark the position of this political family regarding those important decisions to be taken. So without further ado, I will give the floor to Irache, just to say that we have interpretation in English and Croatian. And that's it. We are also live streaming on our website so that the region can also hear us and see the different countries and the different regions can hear us and can see how we are involved and really deepen into the enlargement process. So nothing more from my side. It's a pleasure to host you. And now, Irache, please, floor to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Pedro. Dear estimated guests, dear colleagues, dear friends, I would like to start by thanking you for being here today. Of course, this event is a testament to the importance of the EU enlargement for our progressive family. As a president of the group of Socialists and Democrats in the European Parliament, I want to convey our strongest message of support of our group to the accession process of the Western Balkans, Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia, and to your EU membership. We also support Turkey EU candidacy once the conditions to resume accession negotiations are met. Our European family, our common European project, will not be complete until you are part of it in full. Last month, the European Commission recommended opening accession negotiations with Ukraine and Moldova, granting candidate status to Georgia, and opening accession negotiations with Bosnia and Herzegovina once it delivers on key criteria. This is historic. We are proud of this ambitious decision and the relentless efforts of the many members of our political family, and especially our High Representative, to make this possible. The 10 progress reports presented by the Commission confirm that EU enlargement is once again at the very core of the EU political agenda, and that the process is once again credible, predictable, and on track. We must seize the new momentum and this historic opportunity to accelerate the enlargement process. We now have a solid basis for the Council to take important decisions on the way forward this December. In the current context, looking at what is happening on European soil and beyond, the question of enlargement assumes an ever greater role. Enlargement is the very foundation of the European project and the most prominent and most successful of EU policies. It is a strategic investment in the stability and prosperity of the European continent and of our common European values, today more than ever and well beyond our borders. There cannot be successful EU external actions, no geopolitical union without a successful enlargement policy. At the critical moment we are in, a new impetus is needed to re-energize the enlargement process to give it renewed strength while ensuring its credibility, predictability, and impact. This is one of those moments. This is the golden chance we just cannot afford to miss. And it is just as important to recall the enlargement also provides a unique opportunity to advance on a key EU internal reforms. But these are two parallel tracks. This should not lead to the artificial dilemma between enlargement and reform. They go hand in hand. Internal EU reform and the deepening of EU integration is to serve as an incentive to enlargement and not an obstacle, and should under no circumstances be used to artificially postpone the accession of candidate countries. Targets that are also important. They provide a clear time frame while fostering a strong dynamic and a clear objective within a set period. But the focus of all our efforts toward accession must be centered on commitment, determination, genuine political will, and credible and predictable process based on a set of clear criteria and merit to ensure that any future member constitutes an asset to our common European project and important to the citizens of the candidate countries themselves. And here we have a fundamental role to play because our political family is the most committed to European integration, and we are proud of this. The leadership of the socialist and social democratic parties in the Western Balkans is a valuable example. It underlines the modern and progressive mindset of the region and provides a solid political platform for the realization of accession. I have seen this commitment personally as I traveled exactly a year ago to Albania and North Macedonia, two socialist-led countries and front-runners for EU enlargement. This is why I am particularly happy to see in the room, and will see in the room, the Deputy Prime Minister of North Macedonia, Bojan Marici. And tomorrow, the Prime Minister of North Macedonia himself will join us at our S&D group meeting. This year, I have also traveled to Ukraine to express the group's support for the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the country and to reaffirm our commitment to accompany Ukraine in its accession to the European Union. In Ukraine, but also in Moldova, where I went last year, I have personally seen the inspiring work of our partners there. They also have the determination and the vision to succeed. And we, from our side, will spare no effort to support them, to assist them every step on the way. The S&D group in the European Parliament is the second largest group, bringing together some 140 MEPs from 25 EU countries. In the European Parliament, we are leading voice on enlargement, and our political family has 8 European commissioners, including the first Executive Vice President for the European Commission and High Representative of the EU, Josep Borrell. Key EU countries are led by our prime ministers, and Spain now holds the rotating presidency of the Council of the European Union. This guarantees a strong voice for our political family in Europe. We stand behind a progressive vision for enlargement in which we fight for the extension of democracy, peace, and prosperity across our continent, the transition to a sustainable green economy, and a strong social dimension in the reforms linked to the accession process. We support an inclusive and gender-equal progress process of enlargement in which citizens are meaningfully involved and their concerns are heard. Dear colleagues, This is the longest period without accession to our Union since the fall of the Berlin Wall. It is time to address seriously and strategically the cost of non-enlargement in today's world for both the EU and accession countries. We can no longer afford to miss the opportunity that enlargement can provide to our project and our societies at a time of unprecedented challenges in these important moments in the European Union and in the borders. This is a call for action to the European Council next week, but also to all of us. This moment is simply too important and too historic to lose focus and let bilateral issues, political blackmail, and conservative thinking get in the way of progress. I want to thank you all, and especially our sister parties from all enlargement countries, for accepting our invitation to be here today, and I wish you a productive exchange. We are also much hope to make this event an annual one, bringing together partners from all candidate countries. I look forward to working closely with you in the months ahead on our common European project and our joint initiative to deliver on EU membership and our citizens' needs and aspirations, always with a red heart. Thank you.
It's my turn. So it's a pleasure, and let me thank Irache and Pedro to be here, and it's a pleasure to welcome you to this panel discussion with ambition, policy and active preparations, how to implement the progressive agenda for enlargement, which is taking place at a crucial moment for enlargement and critical geopolitical context. Despite many crises affecting the world, enlargement is and always will be the most effective EU foreign policy instrument, and it remains a strategic investment in stability and prosperity of the EU continent. This is why, no matter what is going on around us, enlargement will remain our top priority. As was mentioned already, on November 8, the Commission presented its enlargement package. Its recommendations included opening accession negotiations with Ukraine, Moldova, opening accession negotiations with Bosnia and Herzegovina once the necessary degree of compliance with membership criteria is achieved, and granting candidate status to Georgia. We are now expecting the European Council to endorse these recommendations next week, giving further impetus to EU enlargement. Today, we are joining forces of our political family to advance this agenda, and for this reason, we have invited 5 estimated panelists. Deputy Prime Minister of North Macedonia, Mr. Bojan Marivci, who has been previously Deputy Chief Political Negotiator, Chief Technical Negotiator, and Head of the Technical Negotiation Team for the accession of the Republic of the North Macedonia to the European Union. Mr. Harula Cecu, Minister of Culture, Youth and Sports, Kosovo, previously also served as Deputy Minister of Tourism and Environment of Albania. We have also the pleasure to welcome 2 Ukraine speakers, both connected online. Firstly, Mr. Vadim Halakchuk, co-chair of the EU-Ukraine Parliamentary Association Committee and member of the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine. We also have Mr. Ivan Nagonak, Deputy Director of the Governmental Office for European and Euro-Atlantic Integration, as well as a member of S&D Platform, our partner organization in Ukraine. Mr. Dmitry Tsiklevely, Chairman of Georgian Progressive Forum, previously a member of the Parliament of Georgia and Deputy Chairman for the Foreign Relations Committee, also connected online. So it's my pleasure now to give the floor to Mr. Cecu. In light of the current geopolitical context, why do you think it's important that our political family advances the progressive vision on enlargement? Thank you so much.
Thank you, distinguished panelists, dear friends. Last year, Kosovo had 3 goals: application for Council of Europe membership, EU membership application, and visa liberalization. Our aim is also to join Partnership for Peace of NATO. Both applications for Council of Europe and EU were submitted in 2022. Visa liberalization starting from January 1st, 2024 is a positive momentum of feeling finally European and belonging to learn and bring back European values. First stage at Council of Europe have passed, and now experts and lawyers are drafting the report. Support for EU membership in Kosovo is highest in the region. It's around 94%. Our decision to apply for EU membership answers the call and aspirations of our citizens who believe deeply that their future is within the European Union. It is a clear sign of our Euro-Atlantic orientation. We very much welcome the renewed efforts for EU enlargement, which unfortunately took another war in soil of Europe to understand that peace and security are not for granted in Europe, and Western Balkan has a lot to contribute to maintaining that peace. The recent EU enlargement package and growth plan proposal adopted by Commission on November 8, 2023, gives a promise to the stagnation in the process of enlargement. To be honest, the agenda from EU was very slow. The commitment and dedication of Kosovo government on the road to the EU is ever greater. Therefore, we support and highly appreciate the growth plan. EU integration and the benefits of the EU single market must be linked to economic and democratic reforms, which is why we firmly stand behind the principles on which this plan is rooted. Because there should be no EU benefits or EU funds without embracing EU values. It is positive to see it will complement funds by IPA 3, where the support will be provided through 2 delivery mechanisms. One is direct support to the national budgets of the beneficiaries, and 2, support to infrastructure investment through WBIF. Our membership application seeks to bring to life the EU promise made 20 years ago in Thessaloniki, as well as those from Sofia, Zagreb, and Brdo declarations, and most recently of the Tirana summit, where EU gave full commitment to EU membership of Western Balkan 6 and called for an accelerated accession process. We believe that time has come for Kosovo and the EU to accelerate joint efforts to address more complex issues standing in the way of EU accession. Kosovo's application for EU membership is the first step in its long membership path, which is not going to be easy. Reforms in the rule of law, justice system, public administration reform, good governance and democratization, and their acknowledgement from EU Commission and Parliament reports make us optimistic. Today, Kosovo is not making steps, but leaps towards democratization, and this is recognized by international indexes of rule of law, good governance, democratization, anti-corruption, and media freedom. Successful implementation of the SAA for the past 7 years demonstrates that Kosovo is prepared in terms of the institutional and legal framework and on Copenhagen criteria. Last year was also very successful in European agenda, where the SAA and European reform agenda halfway through have been implemented at 60% rate. This year's European Commission country report for Kosovo states, among other things, that the government has continued with its ambitious reform agenda towards the EU. During this period, the report proves important legislative achievements in political criteria, as well as the implementation of measures and progress in economic ones and the EU standards. The report commends Kosovo for its foreign policy towards the war in Ukraine and the imposition of measures and sanctions against Russia and Belarus in full compliance with those of EU and the United States. There are also many challenges, of course, and recommendations addressed, and they will be part of our National Plan for European Integration 2024-2028. Our priority, dear friends, is jobs and justice. These are also listed as key priorities within our National Development Strategy, European Reform Agenda, and aligned National Programme for European Integration. In addition, we have delivered in many long overdue reforms which were repeatedly recommended by the EU since 2012. Hence, we deserve to get the EC questionnaire and be evaluated on merit-based for a candidate status. We are seizing this opportunity to demonstrate that we are ready to take our place in the European community, and this is what our achievements in the last 2 years demonstrate to our friends and allies. That Kosovo is a reliable partner ready to make further steps to intensify its efforts in coming closer to the European Union. On regional cooperation, we signed and ratified 3 mobility agreements as part of the Berlin process, committed to a constructive role in this process, and have good neighborly relations with all our neighbors but Serbia. On Ukraine, Kosovo aligned common foreign security policy with the EU, applied all packages of sanctions to Russia, lifted the visa regime temporarily for Ukraine citizens, is hosting Ukrainian journalists as part of our Journalists in Residence program, and expressed readiness to host up to 5,000 refugees. On normalization of relations with Serbia, the government of Kosovo is firmly committed to constructively contribute in increasing necessary conditions for productive dialogue that will effectively lead to implementation of Brussels and Ohrid agreement fully, unconditionally, and as fast as possible. To truly have normalization and regional cooperation and economic integration, it is necessary that all Western Balkan 6 countries advance democratically, because genuine cooperation comes from shared values and shared strategic orientation. Most Western Balkan 6 countries have this in common, but not all. It is evident, especially after Serbia's terrorist attack against Kosovo, but also their open relationship and ever closer cooperation with Russia, that the lack of regional cooperation is due to this stark difference in strategic orientation. For the region to progress, Kosovo's democratic advancement alone is not enough. We need to advance as a region. As Kosovo, we are desperate to continue with EU reforms by removing EU measures as they don't have effect. On the contrary, they appease, and as we have seen, make Serbia even more aggressive. Kosovo's application for EU membership doesn't in any way diminish our engagement in the dialogue process. Moreover, EU should be careful not to condition the legitimate European path and all legal approximation with the progress on the dialogue. The 5 non-recognizers of EU have different bilateral relations with Kosovo. With some of them, we have a deeper relationship than countries who do recognize us. While we are aware the process is cumbersome and both political and technical, we trust Kosovo deserves the candidate status if the process is credible and based on merit. We expect that non-recognizers act the same as in the case of other processes by allowing EU integration process to continue, such as visa liberalization and the SAA. Passing first stage at the Council of EU and allowing European Commission to prepare questionnaire for Kosovo and assess our institutional and legal capacities for EU acquis will ensure that the entire region of Western Balkans moves ahead in EU membership. EU speaks more and more of convergence within its upcoming growth plan for Western Balkans, whereas Kosovo is still under measures. We expect they are removed as soon as possible. Dear friends, the EU membership process should be fully based on meritocracy, but we cannot talk about meritocracy as long as Kosovo is not formally assessed as to whether it meets the Copenhagen criteria. Kosovo believes it is in its European future, and as an example of democracy in the region, it should be given the opportunity to prove it. We have made our move, we have expressed our interest, and we have submitted the EU membership application. I also use this opportunity to invite the EU, respectively the Council of the EU, to mandate the European Commission to make our assessment of the candidate status through the questionnaire. For the end, the removal of punitive measures by the EU would return the motivation and accelerate the reforms even more. This seriousness of commitment will increase many times when Kosovo accepts the status of candidate country, through which we are in our path towards the EU, and this path will become even clearer and more tangible. Kosovo has constantly proved that it is an ally of the EU because it believes in its European future and the European values. Thank you.
And I say welcome to the European Parliament to Mr. Bojan Maričić. He's the Prime Minister of North Macedonia. So welcome in this plenary session. And we all know that your country finds itself in an extremely difficult situation due to the constitutional deadlock. Could you share with us what progressive agenda on enlargement means to you in this context? Thank you.
Alessandra, thank you so much. Iracha told me she was supposed to leave, but we'll meet tomorrow. But I'm very grateful for this invitation. Pedro, thank you so much. Hairula and Dimitri and all the guests here. It is really my pleasure and honor to be here. I'll try to answer this complicated question, but very important one. It's a special honor to address some forum of the European Parliament today, particularly to a forum that reflects the most progressive values of the European Union, from which come the most advanced and reasonably based visions for the future of the Union and for the future of the Western Balkans at the same time. This gives me the right to say, despite that all the challenges, the original idea, the European idea, is alive and worth fighting for. And it's an open concept that apparently needs improvement and upgrade in all phases. I would say that this is a driving force of the group of the Socialists and Democrats in the European Parliament, from which, in an extremely complex geostrategic situation, came the recommendations that were translated into the resolution of the European Parliament for comprehensive reform of the EU Treaty, and I would answer your question through this view. This resolution, you know, that is based on the discussions of the future of Europe, but what is important for us, and you mentioned the challenges of the constitutional deadlock, what is important for us is that this resolution confirms the EU's enlargement policies at the geostrategic moment, and confirms that enlargement is the most successful instrument for closing the open geostrategic issues. The enlargement was and is an answer to the situation in Ukraine, but also enlargement is an answer to the situation in the Western Balkans. It is one of the most successful policies of the European Union, but also a policy that has proven to be engine of peace, democracy, rule of law, prosperity in Europe for all the countries covered by the previous waves of enlargement. What makes most of the sense of this resolution, this resolution points out that if EU wants to be a geopolitical player, it must remain an open project, and also proposes a clear date indication, which is crucial for buying hearts and minds of the people of the Western Balkans, and that is accession negotiations with candidate countries for the next enlargement will be completed by the end of 2030, and by 2030, the countries, member states of the EU will be ready to accept new members. Of course, we don't have doubts that we have a lot to do. We don't have doubts that EU has a lot to do, but we need an indication in order to maintain the basic principles and also the geostrategic relevance and credibility of the EU enlargement policy. And also, we need to be sure that there are no deviations in this process from the EU values, from the EU standards, and from the principle of strict and fair. The Socialists and Democrats in the European Parliament are absolutely right when they say that there is no alternative to the enlargement of the EU and that they welcome the reforms of the principles of the Treaty on European Union, which, among other things, should facilitate this process. One of the measures that those reforms are putting as one of the priorities is end to unanimous decision-making for all the questions, for some of the questions related to enlargement, and opening the possibility for candidate countries to use part of the benefits of the EU even before we become member states in order to encourage economic growth and accelerate social economic convergence. This new approach redefines the role of the EU as a community of nations that takes innovation and leadership in international relations. This is determination that prompted two more innovations on the side of the Brussels in the relations to the Western Balkans, which make it very important. One is the growth plan presented by the Commission that we strongly support, and we were actually asking for it. A growth plan that is an integral instrument of the enlargement package that links the reforms with financial support, that opens the European market for some areas before we are members, and that gives new, fresh air to the process. The other thing is, of course, opening the doors of enlargement policy for Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia, which we fully support, and we see it as a substance and as a chance for the Western Balkan countries as well, instead of a threat. We're facing a moment that represents a special opportunity for the countries of the Western Balkans, and of course for the countries of the Eastern Partnership, former Eastern Partnership. The only way to overcome the deadlocks like ours is to have a clear perspective for EU enlargement by 2030, so a tangible EU perspective for future membership. The second thing is to open the door for socialization of our countries even before membership. And of course, the third is to make the most of the process without making the bilateral issues the key in this process and the kingmaker in this process. So at the end, for the last sentence, I'll just say, North Macedonia is facing a big battle within the country on the constitutional amendments, which is actually not only about the constitutional amendments, but it is on a division on two blocks. A pro-European bloc of political parties led by Social Democrats, SDSM, and by the progressive political forces, the current government, and anti-European bloc that actually would like to get us into the same tunnel that we have been for 11 years, that we haven't seen anything but backsliding. This will be the decision on the next elections that are taking place, parliamentary elections on 8th of May, and the second round of presidential elections, and the first round of presidential elections on the 24th of April. And I can assure you that these elections are the most important one in the last 15 years, because we are fighting to save our country from the hands of the populists who offer nothing than a nationalism and corruption. And nationalism and corruption are strong sides of weak political options. We are a strong political option, and we appreciate very much your support. And I can assure you that Social Democrats of North Macedonia, SDSM, will lead the European front that will join, pro-European front that will join all the forces with all progressive and pro-European political parties, and that we will win the next elections on the 8th of May. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Bojan, for your ideas and your suggestion. And now let me welcome Mr. Vadim Alaichuk, that is connected online. Yes, you are the co-chair of the Ukraine Parliamentary Association Committee. What do you think is the role of interparliamentarian cooperation in EU enlargement? The floor is yours. Thank you.
Much for the invitation and for this opportunity to address such distinctive panel and forum. Would like to use this opportunity to thank S&D for all very important, very strong efforts in support of Ukraine. And though I belong to Servant of the People Party, which is a member of different political family, I must say we appreciate it very much, the unanimous support that we got from different political families in the European Parliament, in very strong resolutions, in very strong political signals on support of Ukraine. First of all, to fight off the aggression, and then second, very important, Ukraine's European integration path. Just recently, we have received good news from the European Commission, basically moving us towards the next big step in our relationships with the European Union. The role of the European Parliament was very, very significant in getting us there. And therefore, we're very hopeful that the efforts that Ukraine is making, and I will stop a little more on those, to perform on all of its obligations, which were outlined in the recommendations issued by the Commission, in the assessment provided by the Commission, and now being discussed among different political groups in different forums such as this. All of that combined will lead the leaders of EU member states to make the right decision in the upcoming Council's meeting in the mid of December. Ukraine has been on this European integration path for over 10 years now after signing the association agreement with the EU, and we are pretty well advanced in terms of implementing European legislation into Ukrainian law. Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine, the main and only legislative body, is of course primarily responsible for adopting the necessary legislation and taking under control the activities in the Cabinet of Ministers and in other government offices on implementing that legislation. So we, after conducting our own assessment recently and after studying the Commission's assessment, we believe that we are ready for this next big step, which is the start of accession talks. And it's the experience of the Western Balkan states, of our dear colleagues and friends, who have had different experience, let's put it that way, and not always very good one, which led us to ask for support in changing these approaches, and we're very happy that we have seen this political support to make accession process, the negotiation process, less formal in terms of having very concrete proposals for those candidate countries who do perform on their obligations, who do follow very, very closely to the recommendations that they are given, to be given this perspective which will allow them to support this drive. Ukraine also has very strong support among its population for the European integration. It's around 90% now, and it's very important not to get people disillusioned, if I may use that word, by not providing clear political perspectives on this process, which is you perform on your obligation, you reach a certain stage, you're prepared to move to the next one, and you are given that chance without unnecessary delays. Now, we are very hopeful, as I said, that the decision would be made in the mid-December, and then we are moving towards negotiating the so-called framework, which also will take some time. And part of the reason why we're so insistent that it's important to make this decision now is that we all understand that next year there will be elections in the European Union and big decisions such as this one to start negotiations with exceeding countries, with the candidate states, would be more difficult to make. And we risking to lose a lot of time next year if we don't make those decisions. So here, I completely support the notions that speakers before me were making about the necessity to be very clear, very transparent about this process. We're happy to hear that the issue of internal reforms in the EU, which are certainly necessary in order for this accession, for this enlargement process to be successful, that they are now going parallel to the reforms in respective candidate countries. This is exactly what I'm talking about when I say that these political processes should be aligned, but should not be dependent on each other completely, because we understand that the tasks, the issues are a bit different in both. And in case of Ukraine, it's not only important to support this drive for internal reforms, which is very strong in the country. After we have undertaken the obligations to perform on the 7 recommendations of the European Commission in just back a few months back, basically, the all the recommendations have been pretty much finished now in terms of the legislative process. We are now finalizing our efforts to adopt in a second reading very important legislation on anti-corruption, important legislation on national minority issues, and that one we, in very close consultations with our neighboring countries, using their models in regulating legislation in education, in media, and so on and so forth. So this process is of course, first of all, important for us, but obviously it is important for our neighboring countries too. And we appreciate their support. And again, I assure you that Ukraine will follow this path and perform on all of its obligations. I do, however, ask for your support, first of all, in putting that political pressure on your respective governments, in your political families, to make sure that these decisions that we all are so hopeful are being made in December for the reasons that I hope that I've been very very clear about. But it's also very important to understand that it shouldn't be viewed only as assistance, as sort of your charity project helping Ukraine, though it is helping us and it is very much appreciated. We also see it as an investment in the future member states and a very, very good push to the future peace negotiations and the form of the resolution of this war that Russia started against Ukraine. It is very clear that Russia is doing everything in its power to delay Ukraine's integration into the European Union and NATO, and for obvious reasons. Russia does not want to see free and prosperous democratic country, Ukraine, on its in its neighborhood for obvious reasons. It's a risk to Russian autocratic regime itself. But it is a very clear indication to everyone in Ukraine and to our neighbors of why it is worthwhile to support Ukraine now. Because if Ukraine is in the European Union, then your investors will have a very clear picture of what Ukraine's economy will look like and will be a lot more inclined in investing in Ukraine. So I would like to hear more from this panel, from all the participants in the group, and if there's any questions about the processes that we're going through in Ukraine, we'll be happy to answer. I know I also have a colleague here from Ukraine's government, which is leading this process, and we're working very closely on this European path. Recently, President issued a decree basically directing everyone to pool all possible resources to have a very clear program of what needs to be done in the very near future for Ukraine to be able to perform on its obligations, for Ukraine to be able to start this negotiation process and go through it successfully. Last but not least, this is the enlargement process, this next wave, if I may say so, means that all of us would have to keep together. As I already mentioned, we study the experience of different countries very closely. We would be happy to share our experience and to provide all the help that is possible, and we're doing so to our dear neighbor Moldova. We're in this together. And we also ask you to provide us with your knowledge and experience, since we are very sure that this common endeavor that we are on, the enlargement of the European project, our common huge geopolitical project, will bring us to this next stage in our development, in our relationships, which would benefit all of us. Thank you very much again for the invitation, and we'll be happy to join the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Vadim, for your speech. We have with us also connected online Mr. Ivan Nagornyak. Can we hear me? Yes.
Yes, do you hear me?
See you. Yes. And so the question is, what do you expect from the European Council next week? The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much for inviting me, for inviting Ukraine to this seminar. And of course, first of all, I would like to thank Irache Garcia Perez for her visit to Kiev together with S&D Group team. And it was a very good gesture of support for Ukraine and for our European integration, as it was one of the agenda. I would like to, first of all, to start that, as many of you said, the European enlargement policy has a very big transformative power. And in Ukraine, you could see how much power it really has. From the very beginning in 2013, it drives us to stand for our European choice. And already 20 years come from already 10 years since we started our revolution of dignity, and it brought us to the signing of the EU-Ukraine Association Agreement. And this transformative power, this soft power, was so strong. We really took very seriously the implementation of this association agreement. It took us to 2021, when we implemented more than half of all of our obligations under this agreement. And it aligned us with a very big amount of the EU acquis. And following this exercise, we understood that first and foremost idea of this integration of Ukraine into the EU is, of course, bringing the European way of life to Ukraine, as the president of Ukraine said in his speech in the European Parliament. And this is a very important issue for us, as this is the main aim of our European integration. That's why in 2022, when Russia began its full-scale aggression, on the fifth day of this aggression, in the February 28, we applied for the EU membership, just to stress that European Union has this transformative power and this power is so strong here in Ukraine that we could even resist during the full-scale invasion and still proceed with our European integration efforts. As you may know, we were successful in our legal obligation and in a larger methodology obligation following the EU questionnaire. We implemented all of the political recommendations that European Commission recommended for us to do before the next steps, and it brought us to the European Commission Enlargement Package report recommendation for European Council to start the political accession negotiations with Ukraine. And although the European Commission also recommended some of the political reforms to be done before the enlargement, the accession negotiations framework will be adopted by the European Council. And we are ready to implement those recommendations. And already, as Mr. Halachuk said in his speech, we have this decree by the President of Ukraine, and we politically also started negotiations with different stakeholders in order to implement all of these recommendations that are relate to the anti-oligarch efforts and fight of corruption and bringing more rights for the national minorities. And we are really moving forward with all of these three efforts. And I think that even by the mid of December, by the European Council meeting, we will be ready to present some results of these three additional political recommendations. Nevertheless, we have this European Commission recommendation for a European Council to start accession negotiations. And in the very end, I would like to say this very important thought made by Irache, that the momentum is too important for Europe, that some political bilateral issues to stop this enlargement momentum. And we are for 100% support this idea that this momentum, this what will happen in the 15th of December, is too important for Europe and too important for Ukraine for some political obstacles or I would say position of one of the member state to stop this process to go further. And in the very end, I would say that, of course, we as answering to your question, we really wait for and we hope for this positive political decision by the EU leaders to start of the accession negotiations, because I'm in the constant communication with our armed forces, with my classmates who are defending Ukraine on the front line, and they are asking me, so what are the next steps on the European integration of Ukraine? Because we would like for Ukraine in the very end to come to this EU membership, and they really believe in this idea. So in order for this belief to stay in line, I think, and I'm ready, I'm for 100% sure that S&D Group will support our efforts, and of course from our side we will stay on our European track whatever happened on the 14th, 15th of December, because this is our choice and this is what we are ready to fight for. Thank you very much, and I hope that I didn't come to some details, but if you have some more questions, I'm ready to answer.
Thank you very much, Ivan. And finally, we have Mr. Civili, and so the question is for him. How did you receive the news of the Commission recommendation to grant candidate status to Georgia, and what could it mean for EU enlargement overall? Thank you. The floor is yours.
Good evening. Hello, dear colleagues, dear friends. Unfortunately, I'm not with you at the moment due to the climate problems in the Munich airport, but definitely I will join tomorrow and we'll have probably the opportunity to meet some of you personally. But here's technology gives us the opportunity to participate even from the far east borders of the European Union. First of all, thank you for inviting me and giving the opportunity to address you and share my thoughts on one of the most important issues for my country for this historical moment. So, just a couple of years ago, enlargement was of EU seemed unthinkable, at least from the Georgian perspective. Georgian accession of the European Union appeared as a elusive project, and even in this hall, in this particular hall, we discussed it extensively for several years. Today, the situation has changed significantly. We're already discussing enlargement of the European Union, including the three countries of Eastern Partnership, like Association Trio, as we call it, including my own country. So even more, we are now jointly discussing the way to shape the enlargement agenda to make EU a fairer place for all of us. Russian invasion of Ukraine and ongoing aggression has changed the geopolitical context significantly, created new challenges to the entire world and the European continent in particular. Russian aggression significantly impacted the security and stability of EU and its neighborhood. So, the European Union responded to these challenges by launching enlargement of the Union and drawing clear lines between the democratic society and authoritarianism in Europe. The enlargement definitely should be beneficial for both candidate countries and the European Union, and we have our internal assignments to facilitate the rapid and effective integration of our countries into European Union, but simultaneously the Union needs to conduct holistic institutional and political reforms to be better prepared for enlargement. As it was mentioned, this initiation was launched by the S&D representatives in Parliament, and we hope very much that this process will end up with making the European Union stronger, more solidary area of equality and prosperity for all of us. This is momentum and opportunity for us to enhance the social dimension of the European Union by strengthening social protection mechanisms in the agreement chapters and setting higher standards within the European Union for all member countries. In just a few days, and here's your question, the Council of the European Union will make an important decision. And I hope that the Council will endorse the recommendation of the European Commission to grant the Georgia candidate status, as well as agree to start the negotiation accession process with Ukraine and Moldova. I knew there are some questions regarding whether the Georgian government deserves the status due to these actions, or better to say its inaction or inability to implement all the necessary reforms to meet the criteria set by the Commission last year. Although the Georgian government did not implement most of the recommendations, I still believe that the granting Georgia candidate status is critically important, and here is why. First of all, public approval of Georgia's EU integration is remarkably high in the country and varies between 80 to 85%, according to the various public opinion surveys. This was also evident in the large-scale public demonstration taking place in the center of Tbilisi in support of European democratic values that has been endangered by the introduction of the so-called agents law, or Russian law, as we call it here, in March of this year. As you may know, the protests forced the ruling majority to withdraw the draft bill. Secondly, refusal to grant the candidate status may cause a lot of frustration in large part of the Georgian society and could provide a fertile ground for anti-European, anti-democratic propaganda already underway in the country. And thirdly, the refusal will give Russia more opportunity to strengthen its influence in the country using both growing influence among the political elites and the possible frustration of the society. So granting the status and imposing the clear conditions for the launching accession will strengthen coercive tools in the hands of the European Union and the Georgian society. It will force the government to take specific steps for the real implementation of the conditions set by the Commission and the Council. The requirements are such as independence of key state institutions, reform the justice system, prosecutor office, anti-corruption, the oligarchization are crucial for the further democratization of the country. However, it is an important novelty among the requirements that I would like to draw your attention. As you may know, next year we have the parliamentary elections, and it's the conduction of the free, fair, and competitive general elections. It's one of the new conditions set by the Commission. Indeed, upcoming elections are the fundamental stage for the democratic development of Georgia. This election will be held for the first time with a fully proportional system, offering a real chance to end the single-party domination in the country and smoothly move toward coalition rule to implement important political reforms in an inclusive manner. So holding free and fair elections is possible through thorough observation of the election process by local and international organizations. And I have in mind not only the observation of the voting date, but also the possibly establishment of the by European Union on long-term monitoring mechanism, which, as I know, as some rumor, according to the rumor that is under the discussions. Careful observation of the entire election process should be carried out to avoid any possible manipulations of the election result, which is, to say true, expected. A relevant long-term observation mission of the European Union would be more influential if granting candidate status to Georgia due to the all above mentioned method. That this is another additional argument why we need this candidate status now. So a few words about the implementation ambitious progressive agenda of enlargement. So as I said, the issues that are currently on the agenda of Georgia-EU cooperation are certainly fundamental for the further consolidation of democracy. However, these are matters that are mostly fall under the hard law of the European Union, and legal harmonization of these spheres are must do. However, some issues are much more substantial importance for a large part of the Georgian population and have existential meaning for them. The accession agenda should prioritize issues such as social justice, strengthening of the social protection, decent employment and living wages, etc., to strengthen solidarity, cohesion and equality in Georgian society, ensuring that no one is left behind. To set effective institutional guarantees for the fair redistribution of the wealth so that each and every person benefits from the economic growth. Today, we really have the economic growth in the country, and a large part of the population still lives in extreme poverty. They are not getting the benefits of the economic growth, which we definitely have. According to all the public opinion surveys, the majority of the population consider themselves as unemployed, noting insufficient of income, insecurity in their workplaces as the main problem for them and their families. The poverty rate is still high. 30% of the employees are working in non-formal sector of the economy and are deprived of any state support. High inflation and rising prices of all essential goods significantly weaken the purchasing power of working people and low and middle income families. Of course, some social reforms have been implemented in the recent years. However, today's social policy of the country is mainly focused on the targeted social assistance. While this assistance slightly improves the condition of people's living in poverty, it cannot ensure that their removal from the categories of socially vulnerable groups, they largely remain in poverty. The problems are paramount and requires a fundamental revision of social protection system of the country. When Georgia, as a candidate country, developing an accession plan, the reform of the social protection system must become a key priority. Like social policy should be the main axis of the plan, but there are obstacles that have to be also addressed, at least from our side, from our perspective. So first of all, this is a neoliberal paradigm which ideologically opposed to increasing role of the states and introduction of the universal social protection system and fair taxation. This is ideology which is oriented toward the protection of the interests of the corporation, the big companies, and unfortunately is very influential in the post-Soviet countries. And we had a quite long period of the reforms of the neoliberal reforms, all the regulations we are now, which the governments and society were trying to correct the following years. Secondly, an increasing aggressive adversary is right-wing extremism and authoritarian elements both within the European Union and in the countries and the candidate countries. Right-wing populists like Orban, who is challenging at the moment the decision of the Commission and blackmailing, let's say, and his allies in Europe manipulating the situation, of course, and often they mostly often are backed by Russian and its aggressive policy. So it is of course difficult to present the ready recipe how we can tackle this and the problem, but with joint coordinated efforts, it is possible to mitigate existing risks in some degrees. I would suggest, and my suggestion here is to establish permanent coordination mechanism within our political family, enlargement committee, where representative S&D, Party of European Socialists, together with the representative of sister parties, partner civil society organizations from the candidate countries will be involved. The committee should set several important objectives, and one of them is to mobilize existing resources, and there are many resources each of the partner organizations, especially the S&D group and the Party of European Socialists have inside of the European Union, but each of the partner sister organizations could organize the political forces around him, and this could be one of the objectives, and this committee should help in coordinating that. To facilitate the coordination of the work of sister parties and partner organizations from the candidate countries, and thirdly, to support sister parties and partner organizations in their endeavor to push the progressive agenda in their national politics. So this is kind of a very brief scheme, but actually I believe that the establishing permanent working group and permanent committee could be very beneficial in order to step by step develop the strategy and to implement the strategy, how to include the most important agenda issues in the enlargement process. So establishment of the committee will not guarantee its renewal, but our coordination actions, cohesion and solidarity will strongly bring success, for sure. Thank you for your attention once again, and ready to join you in the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Dimitri. And I would like to thank to all the panelists for your remarks. And now I would like to open the floor for questions and remarks from the audience. We have with us S&D MEP active on enlargement, but also sister party representatives from the Western Balkans and Turkey, as well as representatives of partner organizations in Georgia, Moldova, and Ukraine. So if someone of you would like to take the floor, I will give you. Please, the floor is yours.
Hello. Hello, everyone. I just want to thank first to SD Group that you called us and that gave us this opportunity to speak about this very important issue. My name is Ksenia Markovic. I'm a member of the Serbian Parliament and also representative of Democratic Party, sister party from SD Group from Serbia. I'm very glad to see that that the SD Group is still dedicated to the EU integration of the Western Balkan region. That is very good news for us. But as you know, the situation in Western Balkan is not the same in each country, and that is the problem. But I can totally agree that enlargement is an answer to the situation for Western Balkan, even if we have in mind these differences that we have between countries. But also I'm a member of the party who is one of the oldest parties in Serbia, founded in the 90s with clear goals, two goals. First goal is to fight for democracy and freedom in Serbia, and second goal is to fight for Serbia in the European Union. And that is very clear and historical fact. Serbia is a part of the Europe that also is historical and geographical fact, so that is not some kind of interpretation like our leaders and our ruling party and our president like to see. What is the situation in Serbia? Well, we have some kind of back and forth policy for 10 years, for a decade now. And because of that, we have some serious consequences when we have in mind enlargement and EU integration process as a process in Serbia. Vučić is doing everything he can to delay integration of Serbia in the EU because it's not in his interest, it's in best interest, but it's very clear. Why? Because then we will have the rule of law, and when you have rule of law and democracy, then you have some chances to maybe lose elections, but on some fair ground, where you have a fair play. Today, Serbia is not a democracy, that's a fact. We don't have a fair elections, that's another fact, and we will see that probably in 17 December, but let's see and wait, it's very soon, only 2 weeks. When we talk about EU integration of Serbia, we need to, me as a member of the pro-European party, clear pro-European party, and also my other colleagues from pro-European parties, that we are now on the one list, Serbia against the violence in these elections. We have a serious problem because we need to fight for the EU integration and to defend EU integration from two aspects. First aspect is we need to fight against Vučić. That's the first, because he's trying to present himself as only credible and legitimacy leader that can lead Serbia to the EU. And on the other hand, we need to fight for this EU perspective of Serbia from the EU themselves. That's the problem, and that's the tricky part. Why? Because I think now more than ever, it's very clear, if you have in mind Serbia as example, that this stabilocracy that we had as a project, as answer to stability, to have stability in the region and Serbia, is gone. And it was illusion. So this illusion of political elites in the European Union, that conservatives and nationalists will decide the future of the region in the way that we will have stability and find the sustainable answers, well, I'm afraid that's not the case. You can just look to Serbia and relations of Serbia with Croatia, Montenegro. If we talk about normalization of Belgrade and Pristina, it's a disaster. So I think we need more political will and political strength and honesty on the both sides if you want to make this mission happen, to have this Western Balkan in the EU. We need a new political vision and we need a new approach. Why new approach? Because we need to find a new strength to fight for this aim. We need a new approach because in Serbia, if you now, 2 or 3 days ago, you had the news from Aleksandar Vučić who said, okay, Ohrid agreement can become the part of the chapter 35. If that's the case, then, and I quote, for Serbia, doors for the EU are closed. I'm a member of the parliament and I didn't see the Ohrid agreement. We had some kind of discussion in the National Assembly, but we didn't saw it the agreement as agreement, as a paper. We didn't see it. So that's the situation in Serbia. That's the reality that we live. And also the reality in Serbia is this, that we have still over 35% of the people who want to go in the EU, despite the 1 decade of anti-EU and anti-West narrative from ruling party. And I think that's a success. That's a big success because you have political propaganda, very strong political propaganda against the EU by the ruling party who is claiming that strategic interest of the Serbia and strategic goal is to become the EU member state. So if we have in mind that that's not the case, then we need to consider also what is this new approach, and also we need to consider when we talk about this integration process of Serbia, not just talk about relations and normalizations of relations between Pristina and Belgrade, and not to talk about only about Kosovo. We need to talk about rule of law, we need to talk about corruption, and we need to talk how to fight against organized crimes. Because Serbia is the biggest country and a most important country in the region. That's the fact. Why? Because everything that happens in Serbia can have a serious consequences in the region, in Republika Srpska, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Montenegro, Kosovo also, which country would you want to choose? And especially if we have in mind this strong alignment between Orban and Vučić as to a project of this stabilocracy approach, then it's clear. If we want to have sustainable solution for the Western Balkan region, we need more political strength, more political will, and we need democracy and fight for democracy. And just want to finish, democracy of the European Union and democratic value of the European Union will fight and need to fight on the Western Balkan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now the floor for Mr. Bohdan Ferenc, that is online. The floor is yours. Can you hear me? There is no connection. We cannot because you are using an iPhone, so for us it's impossible. So there is anyone else that won't take the floor? Alexander, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues and friends, it is my pleasure to participate in such an important event that addresses enlargement policy organized by the group of socialists and democrats in the European Parliament, which has already become a tradition and valuable experience of our political family. I want to express gratitude because for us from the Western Balkans, such initiatives are both support and encouragement on the way to achieving common European goals. The activities of your leaders, your prime ministers, ministers, commissioners, parliamentarians, mayors, and other representatives had and have an impact on Brussels and the enlargement policy and are respectively accepted by our membership and the general public. We owe special thanks to the rapporteur, Mr. Tonino Pizzula, who with numerous initiatives and reactions has had a positive influence on overcoming the internal challenges we were facing, as well as on the adoption of numerous resolutions, which most often have contained recommendations for further actions on the path to EU integration, thus always maintaining a European perspective certain. And what is even more important, that he has always emphasized that at the same time it is political, security and economic interest of the EU. For us in the region of the Western Balkans and Montenegro, messages that the policy of enlargement remains high on the agenda of European socialists are encouraging. However, we are concerned about the situation not only in Montenegro, but also in the region, which is much worse than a decade ago. Anti-European forces are rising again. The policy of drawing ethnic borders in the Balkans is awakening as in the 90s, and there is intention to prove that multi-ethnic democracy is not possible in our countries, as well that the European perspective has an alternative. On behalf of the Democratic Party of Socialists of Montenegro, allow me to introduce some important elements of the current political situation in our country, which make us, first of all, express concern for the future European path of Montenegro. The past 3 years in Montenegro has been completely wasted. We have two unsuccessful replaced governments, a stumbling economy and expelled credible foreign investors, and Montenegro, that opened all negotiation chapters a long time ago and was a leader in integrations, now is stuck in that process, as evidenced by the last progress report, which is the worst since Montenegro negotiated for its membership. We have not closed a single negotiation chapter, and out of 9 billion euros that the EU has allocated for projects in the Western Balkans from 2021 to 2027, we have not used a single monet. EU funds remained unused due to poor state management. The crisis is present in all forms of social activity, from healthcare to the economy and education. And the worst of all is that the inadequate functioning of institutions has also caused a serious political crisis. The fact that from the circumstances we observe tells us that even with the new government that has just been formed, things will not be much better. Today's parliamentary majority is made up of parties that are in the service of Russian aspirations, which was confirmed by the newly elected President of the Assembly, who comes from the ranks of those political structures that cannot come to terms with state independence, nor with membership in NATO, as well as leading role in EU accession. The very ideological range of participants gathered in the ruling structure requires serious effort and compromises in order to maintain it. For some of the ruling parties, the very concept of Montenegrin statehood and civic concept of society is questionable. In such a context, the integration of Montenegro into the EU will be particularly difficult once specific problems in the negotiations with Brussels come to the agenda during the closing of individual chapters. In such a socio-political environment, DPS will remain consistent with European values that it fought for and that it has woven into Montenegrin society, and will continue to act as a sharp and strong opposition to the government structures and defend the national interests of Montenegro. Aware that in this time ahead, we must ensure that Montenegro does not falter from the European path and perseveres in the intentions of building a prosperous civic society, we remain strongly committed to strengthening internal and therefore regional stability and further progress in integration. Everything we have achieved so far in this regard is the result of the continuous support and help of our European partners, which we still need. That is why we want to keep you updated with current processes in the region and in Montenegro. Any alternative to the European path and European unification, whether it's internal, regional, or European initiative, is well known and means an even deeper lag behind the European level of economic and democratic development and continuous disruption of regional and European stability. That is why we believe that the European perspective will remain real and that both European and regional leaders will recognize that any kind of challenge should not be an excuse for deviating from certain agreements within the EU, as well the EU and the region, but that everything should be done for Europe to achieve comparative advantage in relation to other global actors. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Alexander. And now we are able to give the floor to Bohdan Ferenc, that has a computer.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Thank you. The floor is yours.
Yes, thanks a lot, dear members of S&D Group. It's a privilege to speak to you today. On behalf, I think, of progressive people of Ukraine, I emphasize the critical importance of integrating a progressive agenda into the accession process of Ukraine to the European Union. As we navigate the path towards the EU membership, we must remain steadfast in our commitment to prioritizing the need of those who have suffered the most, particularly the people who have endured the harsh consequences of Russian war. It is imperative that accession process should not just be a bureaucratic challenge, but a transformative journey that has to bring positive change to the lives of ordinary people and, of course, Ukrainians. The scars of war run deep, and it is our moral obligation to ensure that the healing process is at the core of our agenda. We must address the socio-economic challenges faced by the most vulnerable segments of our society, providing them with the support and opportunities they need to rebuild their lives. This means investing in education, healthcare, and social welfare, creating a foundation for a more just, and equitable society. Furthermore, to successfully integrate a progressive agenda, because you asked also a lot about how we in candidate countries understand what is progressive agenda in the context of accession, we must focus on strengthening institutional capacity. Robust institutions are the pillars of a functioning democracy and thriving society. We must prioritize reforms that enhance the rule of law, of course, transparency and accountability. This is not only fosters good governance, but also builds the trust of our citizens in democratic process, laying the groundwork for a resilient and stable nation. S&D Group can play a main role, I think, in this regard, and the values that underpins an S&D Group, I mean social justice, solidarity, and equality, resonates deeply with the aspirations of the Ukrainian people. We call upon the S&D Group and the future convocation of the European Parliament to actively support Ukraine in this transformative process. Together we can act as a guiding force, advocating for policies that align with our shared values and ensuring that the accession process remains people-centric. Collaboration could be instrumental in shaping policies that address the specific needs of our nation and foster a sense of inclusivity. As we strive for EU membership, let us not forget the importance of effective coordination. And I think it is necessary to facilitate a cohesive and streamlined approach to the accession process. Together we can navigate the complexities, overcome challenges, and build a stronger and more united Union. The integration of progressive agenda into the accession process of Ukraine is not just a political choice, I think. It is a moral imperative. Let us work together, I mean S&D Group, SD Platform, all Ukrainian institutions, and the broader European community to ensure that our journey towards EU membership is marked by compassion, resilience, and a commitment to build a better future for all. And I also totally support the idea that Dmitry, my friend from Georgia, mentioned in the context of creating this kind of working group on this accession process for our countries that can just be a driving force for more better, effective, and inclusive politics at the national level of our countries. From the side of SD Platform, I would like to thank S&D Group for support, because we believe that only with the people, I mean progressive people at different levels, we can just improve also our path and be more efficient in the context of full membership of our country. Thanks a lot, and a big greetings, a lot of greetings from brave Kiev to all participants, all the participants of today's event. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bohdan. So I will ask if you want, there is someone, yes, Mirko, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
And then Sasha, thank you.
Thank you very much, and let me express gratitude in the name of one of the oldest sister parties from Western Balkan region, from Social Democratic Party of Montenegro, and I will start with something that was mentioned in the beginning. The enlargement policy of European Union is not one of the best policies. It's the best policy of European Union. Otherwise, there will be no gap between Romania and Moldova, between Montenegro and Slovenia, or Belarus and Estonia or Lithuania. These countries are now having their best time of history and growth and development because they are members of European Union. And being member of European Union is a dream for other non-European members now. But if you want to know how to spoil it out, how to do things wrongly, just look at Montenegro. We were the front runners until 3 or 5 years ago, but even before these whole elections and the strong pressure that we feel from neighboring countries, but also from the third parties, we miss a few years. We miss a few years because we will self-satisfied because we are the front runners. But being front runner isn't enough. You have to maintain a pressure on your political decision makers to make things work. We didn't have a working democracy in Montenegro. So now we are paying the price. And when you don't have a working democracy in your country, it's always a playing field for different players. Different players that have one thing in common. They don't want European Union to be strong one. They don't want a strong geopolitically referent European Union. They want divided European Union. And these countries are having really strong agenda. They're not playing by the book. They don't have rules. They want to interfere in our political system. They want to interfere in our media. They want to interfere in our census. They want to interfere in every single part of civics of society in our country. And they're doing a good job. They're having a good job in making a country full of frustrated people. And for us, as members of social democratic parties, which are having these difficulties of promoting different EU agendas in our countries, gender policies, LGBT policies, minority policies, immigration policies. It's really hard to fight with the common word fatigue that is coming from European Union. Because that period of 10 years that we are not having a new member state is long enough for some of the people from our countries, from civic society, from the people that were in alliance with us to ask for us, okay, what's the deal? They're not going to have any enlargement because they're having a fatigue. And why should we make some of these policies, but when we are doing a huge mistakes if implementing that? So the main question is, are we going to have some kind of milestone from European Union? It doesn't have to be close one. 2030 sounds really good for me because I'm hoping to be in European Union from 1990. But we are not having, I don't know, as many years as we want. We are all getting older. We are not getting any younger. So after 17 or 18 years of being into European path for Montenegro, for my friends, for my party, we expect that a stronger position of SD group into European Union to a process of EU enlargement. Because you understand us, and you know what we are dealing with in our countries. So for not to be so grave, I think that we are having a good opportunity now. That we are having a good opportunity to maintain this engine, as Bojan said, European engine working, to have Western Balkan countries, but also Ukraine, Georgia, Moldova, as a new European member states, and to make Europe strong again. Not anybody else. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mirko, for your important remarks. And Sasha, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Did I understand well that we have Croatian interpretation here? Do we have translation in Croatian? If it's okay, I would like to speak my mother language because it's not so. I feel very good to speak my mother language in European Parliament. So if you don't mind, can I switch to Croatia, Bosnian, Serbian, and all other Esperanto? Yes. Hvala. Hvala puno. Prije svega hvala vam što u kontinuitetu organizujete ovakve događaje. To nam mnogo znači. A još više nam znači konkretne aktivnosti koje S&D grupa provodi u parlamentu, a i na samom terenu i što ste uz čitavu regiju Zapadnog Balkana. Ja dolazim iz zemlje koja je, Bosne i Hercegovine, zemlje koja je naučila da ne isporučuje mnogo ili nekada i ništa, a da uvijek dobije nagradu. Pa smo tako dobili sporazum o stabilizaciji i pridruživanju, a da nismo ispunili uslov. Pa smo dobili MAP, Member Action Plan, sa NATO-om, a da nismo ispunili uslov. Pa smo nedavno dobili kandidatski status da nismo baš uradili mnogo. I zaključak koji se izvede iz toga, šta je nas naučila Evropska unija, da ne trebaš puno raditi, nego da trebaš biti strpljiv i čekati da Brisel odustane od svojih zahtjeva i da te nagradi. I pošto to traje jako puno, generacije političara stasavaju koje smatraju da je za naš evropski put samo dovoljno da budemo strpljivi i da će Brisel odustati. A onda se desi nešto vrlo zanimljivo i neobično, a to je da Bosna i Hercegovina počne da isporučuje. I to se desilo u ovom zadnjem periodu. Ne dovodim to u vezu s tim da smo mi kao socijaldemokrati preuzeli vlast i mislim da nema toliko veze, nego opšte su okolnosti takve da se stvorio momentum da smo počeli da usvajamo zakone. I dobili smo do sada najbolji izvještaj o napretku. I onda umjesto da budemo nagrađeni datumom od počinjanja pregovora kao druge dvije zemlje, mi smo dobili uslovno zeleno svjetlo. E sad ljudi gledaju na to na različite načine. Možda je bilo bolje biti još malo strpljiv, pa da okolnosti, kao što je bilo sa kandidatskim statusom, jer je razlog kandidatskom statusu ruska agresija na Ukrajinu, a ne nikako da smo mi isporučili ono što se od nas tražilo. Ili, s druge strane, gdje sam i ja, ljudi koji zagovaraju da učinimo dodatni napor i da isporučimo još. Jedina tema u Bosni i Hercegovini oko koje postoji konsenzus su evropske integracije. Danas smo imali ovdje u Briselu politički forum na visokom nivou gdje ne možete vjerovati kakve političke različitosti sjede za jednim stolom sa strane Bosne i Hercegovine i govore jednim glasom. I mislim da je to jedina tema gdje mi govorimo jednim glasom. Dakle, Ukrajina, što podržavamo, je dobila zeleno svjetlo. Druga država koja, realno govoreći, ne kontroliše baš čitavu svoju teritoriju je također dobila zeleno svjetlo. Za Bosnu i Hercegovinu postoje dodani uslovi i postoje zemlje koje se definitivno, na primjeru Bosne i Hercegovine, može reći, se protive proširenju. Naravno, to niko ne kaže javno, nego su razlozi prvo reforma Evropske unije, pa ćemo onda govoriti o proširenju, ili se postavljaju uslovi za koje se zna unaprijed da ne mogu biti ispunjeni, ali postoji neka vrsta protivljenja proširenje. Mi u Bosni i Hercegovini u ne tako davnoj istoriji imamo iskustvo šta se desi kad međunarodni partneri okrenu glavu i izmaknu se pred nepravdom i nanošenjem zla i šteti. Pošto živimo u vremenu velikih izazova, mi moramo na to podsjećati i imamo pravo tražiti da se učini sve da se bilo koji oblik nepravde i odluke brisaju. Govorim prije svega o nizozemskom protivljenju, s tim da imam pravo to reći da smatram da je Nizozemska posljednja zemlja koja bi se trebala protiviti, budući da postoji presuda da je nizozemski bataljon u Srebrenici mogao, a nije spasio jedan broj ljudi. Dakle, govorim o političkoj refleksiji toga. Ali dobro. I na kraju samo želim reći jednu stvar koja, da bi vam bilo jasno u kako kompleksnim uslovima Bosna i Hercegovina danas ipak nešto isporučuje. Nas često pitaju, evo mene, kako da Ukrajina, zemlja koja je u ratu, može usvojiti više zakona nego vi koji živite relativno normalno. Moj odgovor na to je, zamislite da u Ukrajini postoji zastupnici Rusi iz Donjecka koji imaju mogućnost veta na svaki zakon. Da li bi Ukrajina na taj isto kvalitetno, kao što je to sada, usvajala zakon? Dakle, mi u parlamentu Bosne i Hercegovine imamo Ruse iz Donjecka sa mogućnošću stavljanja veta na svaku odluku što se i koristi. A ko su Rusi iz Donjecka najbolje se vidi u zadnjem izvještaju, jer to je vrlo detaljno opisano u onom dijelu gdje se opisuju stvari koje su u Bosni i Hercegovini blokirane i koje se ne rade, a trebale bi biti urađene. Na kraju ja se još jednom zahvaljujem S&D grupi na podršci koja je stvarno značajna i izvan ove grupe, da ne nabrajam sad sve zastupnike, bojim se da ću nekoga preskočiti, ali moram spomenuti bivšu zastupnicu našu u Europskom parlamentu, a sada ministricu Tanju Fajon, koja zaista radi veliki posao i toliko velik da neke njene kolege, ministri vanjskih poslova iz zemalja Europske unije, kažu: Saša, vi ovoj ženi trebate napraviti spomenik u Sarajevu koliko se bori i za Bosnu i Hercegovinu i za ostale zemlje Zapadnog Balkana. Hvala.
Hvala, Saša. I'll take from this moment on. If you would like to ask for the floor, please indicate. Yes, Mr. Gogon.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pichula. I'm just trying to close the ring of the Western Balkans. My colleagues already set a pace. Speaking on behalf of Albania, for me it's also a privilege to be here, to be part of the S&D family, but also to meet the colleagues from the region, which is a great joy. These are crucial moments for you guys and for us. A crucial moment for you because you are entering elections and you're thinking of the future of Europe. And to hear in this crucial moment that the enlargement policy is the best investment that Europe can make to its own prosperity and to its own security, of course, it is very reassuring for us. On the other hand, it is a crucial moment for the Western Balkans because now the enlargement policy is not only a conversation going on. Now it looks like more like a realistic plan because there is a date, We have heard from President Michel that 2030 is a doable date for the first countries to enter. And there is a growth plan. So the core of your main document, of the great shift that strive toward the sustainable well-being, it looks like it is encompassed the Western Balkans, and we are looking forward to implementing that, each country on its own, but then also with regional cooperation, in order for the citizens of the Western Balkans to start not only aspire the European Union, but start feeling it, start touching it, start experiencing it little by little. I think the main, I'm not going to go into the progress report that everyone did for its own country. What I can say is we are looking forward to opening the first cluster of the chapters of negotiations. The methodology has changed since Montenegro and Serbia started negotiations, so we are going to negotiate clusters, and we've worked very hard for the last, this year, with the negotiation team, so we're really looking forward to that. Of course, the Commission has proposed that to the Council, so we will look forward to the decision that will be made by the Council, counting all those innuendos that that happen in the Council. But my main question is, what will happen as you guys enter elections? And perhaps Commissioner Varela will not be there. We really hope, we wish he's there. Actually, you mentioned Tanja Fajon, but she's moved on. She's doing things now for Slovenia. What will happen when the President of the Commission, when the President of the Council and all of that, and when the new reality after elections will start to emerge? Are we going to start again with a new plan, or this is, I think, the main insecurity that it looks like it's going to face the Western Balkans, as we are striving without Plan B toward the membership. And I'm sure you have experienced that despite the imperfections that each democracy in the Western Balkans is facing, despite the imperfections that each rule of law state is facing, I think every country with that project, with the EU membership project, has done an amazing job in the last decade, moving forward. So my question is, what will happen the next day after European elections? And we hope and we pray that you guys do better than everybody expects. But I think the European project depends a lot on how you are going to do with the new plan that you've put forward to the European citizens. Thank you.
Thank you for your intervention. Now floor goes to Mr. Eriup Doru.
I think nous n'avons pas la traduction, donc je vais faire comme nos amis de Croatie, un cours dans mon langue maternelle et sera la traduction de deux phrases. Spas bu evditini.
So we'll start by thanking for this opportunity to be here today.
Türkiye'ci gel yekiti Avrupa despeki 1999 despekir prosesa yekiti Avrupa'yı bu endamiyeti müracaat kır.
And Turkey has tried to be a member of the European Parliament in 1999. they applied for membership.
دەستپێکی هەنێک پێشکەتنن بچووک دەموکراسی چێبوون.
At the beginning, we saw some positive steps forward for membership.
ئەما پشتی وێ تورکێدا دەموکراسی تەمامەن تونەبوو یانی.
But very soon after, we see no steps forward in this process.
هەموو شارەدارên هاتن هەڵبژارتن هاتن گرتن.
Right now, we're in a process where most of our co-chairs, municipality co-chairs, are imprisoned.
پارلەمەنتەر سەرۆکی پارتیە مە هەف سەرۆکی پارتیا مە نەها حەبسێ دانە.
And also our co-chairs, Selahattin Demirtas and Figen Yüksekdağ, are imprisoned.
مثلا من گەل لە جارە گەل سەلاحەتین دەمیرتاش vê derê konferansê de beşdarî konferansê bûn niha hepsê dane.
We have been participating at this kind of events together with them here at the European Parliament, but right now they are imprisoned in Turkey.
Ji bo vê sebebê jî zaten Yekîtiya Avrupa prosesa tevlîbûna Tirkiye da sekinandin.
And actually this is why the European Parliament has stopped this accession process.
Türkiye anha em nikarin bêjin devleteke hukukiye.
Right now we are not even able to say that Turkey is
just
a state of principle.
Çima ne kanuni Yekîtiya Avrupa kabul dike ne jî kanunên Yekîtiya Konsey Avrupa kabul dike. Yani mesela biryarê wan jî bile kabul nake.
They don't even because they don't even accept any kind of rules of laws regarding taken by the European Parliament or the Council of Europe.
Em wek parti tabii ki em taraftarı ki Türkiye bu devleteke demokratik ve bu endamı Yekîtiya Avrupa'yı.
As HEDEP, as party, we are pro membership and accession of Turkey within this European Parliament.
Ama kriteri demokrasi,
Union, sorry.
Kriteri demokrasi bu herkesi göre vek hevdir.
But we do believe that the principles should be the same for everybody.
Spas.
Thank you.
Thank you for your interventions. Now floors go to Madam Anna Stevanovic-Dukic.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for inviting us and that we have opportunity to be today with you and to hear and to exchange our thoughts. I would like to be very short, not to take much time, but I would just like to make a few points. First one, I would just like you to recall one quote, which is saying that smart people are learning based on the mistakes of others, not by making their own mistakes. So when it comes to the theme of enlargement, I would just like to stress two mistakes that I think and that I consider that I had made in the case of the Serbia. One of the first criteria that is mistake and that should be prevented in a future enlargement process is that in case of Serbia, many of the standards and the values that are based on the European Union are just violated. And we can discuss very long about the consequences of it. But for example, in Serbia now we have certain absurd that year by year the support to the Serbian membership to the European Union decrease and decrease, which is a paradox. And voters in Serbia, especially those one who are much more supporting the opposition, they just ask, okay, but we want Serbia to be the member of the European Union. But in the same time, we see many European officials that actually are supporting the government that is very hard to be called democratic. And those are not just my words. It's enough just to see the reports that actually we have every year and the reports, for example, Reporters Without the Borders, Freedom House, which can give the evidence of the things that actually I'm speaking right now. So one of the advice will be never to sacrifice European values when it comes to the enlargement process. And the second mistake, it's very connected with the first one, and actually is one of the consequences of the first one. And it's advice actually for the European Parliament and for the Europe as well. Much more should be done when it comes to the public diplomacy. So people in Serbia do not actually feel and they are not aware of the support, financial support and other support that the European Union has given to our country. So when I speak with friends, colleagues, with some voters and say this is what the European Union has done, they're just wondering really. So the sphere of public diplomacy is a very important field that that some attention may be put. So maybe some kind of NGOs can be serious partner in that process, and I would just like you to consider that kind of a thing in order to make the enlargement process in other countries much more efficient and much better. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Stojanovic-Đukić. Now, of course, there is still a room for interventions, and I think Bojan would like to take the floor again. Please, Bojan.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Picula, dear Tonino. Thank you for the opportunity. I just wanted to comment very briefly on some of the points. I cannot on all because it will take a lot of time, but few I think are very important. I think, I mean, I'm a big fan and supporter of Montenegro, but I wanted to touch upon what Mirko was discussing and talking about. The concept of front runners, I think it's a very frustrating. It's frustrating for those who think that they're front runners. I'm telling you from our experience, because we we started the process as candidate country in 2005, together with Croatia and Turkey. I see Mr. Doru here. Croatia is already a member state for 10 years. Then we were hoping to catch the train with Serbia and Montenegro. Didn't happen because we had a bilateral issue and a backsliding after that. And now we have started together with Albania, and again we are at a junction in which we don't know how we will cross, into which direction. So I don't think that the concept of front runners is helping us, because every and each of us as countries might become a front runner and might become also an underachiever at the same time, or after a very short time. So this is why I think what we should be concentrated on is how to make, how every country to make a step forward each year. This is, in my opinion, the most important thing. 2030 is realistic for us. If you ask some people here in Brussels or in the member states, they'll say it's too early. I follow the discussion in Montenegro, and I know that 2026 for some parties or for everybody is the preferable date. But in order to be realistic for 2026, it means that you need to close the negotiations next year, 2024. So we have time for the accession treaty ratification. So I don't think it's realistic. I mean, I would like to, but I don't think it's realistic. This is why I think we should head to 2030. And I think that we have to push the door to be open in 2030. It can be 2032, it can be 2031, 2033. It's not about the detail, it's about the concept and indicator that we need to run for 2030. Of course, that doesn't mean that we get the date and we go to sleep for 6 years. No, but it means that we get a chance to fight for and to work for. And I think that's the most important thing. The concept of front runner can change from year to year. Who knows who will be a front runner next year and who will be an underachiever next year. So I think that the most important is to work on this. And finally, I agree on one thing. Don't sacrifice the EU values in the process, because North Macedonia has suffered a lot from this. Sasha said that Bosnia and Herzegovina always gets something even without delivering. We always get less than necessary even if when we deliver. This is very frustrating. It's not frustrating for the nationalist and anti-European forces. It's frustrating for pro-European people. And this is why for the first time after the Bulgarian veto, in the past 3-4 years, we had a huge drop of 20% in the support of the people for EU accession. This is a huge thing. We are now changing the path. People are going back to the support, but it's really difficult to fight the perception that EU process is only about pleasing the neighbors who are already members of the European Union. Thank you.
Thank you, Bojan, for these comments. So, dear colleagues, time is running fast, but nevertheless, I don't want to prevent anyone from asking for floor, because that's all about. We find ourselves here to debate, to discuss. Of course, there is still room afterwards, during the dinner. But if you feel that you missed something to say, or if you need some kind of clarification, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
First of all, thank you for the invitation. My name is Galina Krasovska. I'm representative of SD Platform Ukraine. And some short point that I would like to add. First of all, talking about democracy, we see that Ukrainian society, every time the question of democracy is under some discussion, Ukrainian society shows its strong support and strong unity and strong position that it should be democratic society. But we have to understand that during all this process, the rights of workers, rights of young people, rights of academics should be presented on side of social democratic forces. And we need to understand that in Ukraine we need a strong social democratic position, and that can be built just with support of social democratic group. For now, we do not have in Ukraine social democratic party. We have organizations and our organization, that's political movement, and we are fighting for rights of educators, and that's really crucial question also to underline. What can Ukraine bring to you? And the most developed fields in Ukraine, that's IT, agriculture, and academic field. But now we feel a lack of human resources. A lot of our people are moved abroad. And we also need to think how to help them come back. For some of them right now, or to work online, and for some of them when the war will be stopped. And that's a question of security not only for Ukraine, but also for the European Union. And the stronger we can be just when we combine our fights and when we combine our work. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Krasovska. My list of speakers gets very short. Better to say that I don't have anyone indicated to speak. So maybe it's time to approach to famous last words. Better to say concluding remarks coming from my side. And first of all, I would like to greet you, dragi prijatelji. Dear friends, welcome to European Parliament. Couple of the sentences I think it's important to say, even to repeat myself from many events and occasions. I got the opportunity to talk about enlargement, and believe me, it's a number of events and conferences, meeting with the people. Yes, it goes without saying that history of European Union is a history of enlargement, starting 6 countries 70 years ago. Now it's 27 countries. As you can heard many times during this afternoon, I think one of the most frequent words we used was investment, in a way. But it also it's true that enlargement has been one of the really most successful European Union politics, a true DNA of European project. But let us remind on something what had happened 20 years ago at its June 22 summit in Thessaloniki. European Union heads of states and governments promised European perspective to Western Balkans country. That's true, I was there. They clearly stated that the future of the Balkans is within European Union. But following the 2004 and 2007 enlargement, we witnessed, how to describe it, but as enlargement fatigue. And many years later, the European Union enlargement policy was not perceived as an active or even ambitious policy. While some EU member states consider that the policy does not reflect their expectations towards EU enlargement and should be more courageous, candidate countries consider that it does not sufficiently reflect their reform efforts and preparations for EU accession. Northern Macedonia is the best possible example. When we started our European path in Zagreb, Northern Macedonia in November 2000 signed its stabilization and association agreement. We were way lagged behind Northern Macedonia. Moving away from promoting enlargement in general can be interpreted as a concession to large and larger parts of public opinion in EU member states. But it must be clear that it also bears the risk of further fueling populist political forces in the candidate countries. This is why having you all here with us today is so important. I remember a couple of years ago, better say 10 years ago, before European Parliament elections in 2014, I checked all manifestos coming from the relevant political groups here in the European Parliament, from the left to the right, and I didn't find the word enlargement. The same had happened in 2019. So almost enlargement in one moment became four-letter words. Who knows English well understand what I wanted to say, in a way. Better to say, after Big Bang enlargement, and then consequently accession of Romania and Bulgaria, each and every crisis, I mean global crisis, which hit European Union, downsized appetite for enlargement. Starting from 2007, 2008, financial crisis started in the United States of America. When it crossed the ocean, here it became a social crisis, political crisis, not only economic crisis, because that type of American crisis hit very hardly remnants of the welfare state in the European Union. Decreasing services of welfare states, and in a way hurt for the first time a great number of the young people in Europe, all over Europe, who believe that they are living in worse conditions than their parents and their grandparents, for the first time after the World War II. The second time, it started through migration crisis, 2014, culminated in Brexit 2016. And of course, I don't think Corona pandemic in a way also encouraged European Union member states to think more courageously about enlargement. Paradoxically, the first global crisis which in a way renewed interest for enlargement in the European Union was Russian aggressions against Ukraine. All of the sudden, out of the blue, European Union starts to think that it's absolutely needed to invest its own future, to expand the area of its influence, combating malign influence of others. We talked a couple of hours here, but no one mentioned one very interesting process we need to talk about. At least there's 3 big elephants in the room, at least 3. Russia, China, and Turkey, in a way. And we all them can identify as geopolitical rivals of the European Union and the Western Balkans, in a way. And in order to be more equipped to cope with the problem, European Union all of a sudden uplifts so-called strategic culture, investing again in process of enlargement. Just to remind you that 1 year ago we met in Vienna when S&D group in European Parliament organized the Western Balkans Summit Leader. Some of you were there. We got a nice one-day conference, and it was end of the one very promising year, in a way. Northern Macedonia, Albania started negotiations, or got finally date. Bosnia and Herzegovina applied for the membership. Kosovo applied for membership in European Union. Unfortunately, only Serbia and Montenegro didn't progress during that promising 22. But where we are 1 year after the Vienna, it's very hard to say that we got some ground to be over-optimistic. I think we are in a business like it was 2 years ago. Because this year started with very ambitious plan coined here in Brussels, promoting by High Representative Borrell and Special Envoy Lajčák about some kind of agreement between Belgrade and Pristina, 21-point plan, in order to not only facilitate the dialogue, it's a bureaucratic phase, but to bring an end to more than a decade political conflict, and not only political conflict between 2 countries, in a way. But instead of the cutting a deal, we got dead bodies in the north of the Kosovo. So it's not too much encouraging to talk about overall process in the Western Balkans when talk about enlargement. And as Bojan described, there is not only internal problems or bilateral problems which might suspend progress in enlargement. Let's talk about pressure from European Union member states. You can talk hours about, first of all, your southern neighbor, then easternward neighbor, in a way. Yeah? But I think that it may be overcome in time. We can unlock that safe for Northern Macedonia, but where do I see some even more problem and why I'm cautious? Enlargement is also full of paradox. And one paradox I can talk about is that you can find, let's say, 9 countries in European Union, Slovenia, Croatia, Austria, blah, 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 which are absolutely, deliberately for the enlargement. For me, it's Croatian national interest #1. Because when I was asked as a foreign minister, former, what I think about Croatian accession to European Union, is it historic day? I said, of course, but we are not there yet. How you mean? 1st of July 2013, it's a day for celebration. Okay, but true day we should celebrate will be when all our neighbors will be also part of the same story. What does it mean? Because our neighbors would probably get rid of the internal problems and they accept certain European standards, and then we can enjoy all benefits of being member of the United States, or being of the European Union. So it's not here yet. But there is very influential way of thinking in European Parliament, even in Commission, not all. Commission and Parliament, we are on the same page when talking about enlargement most of the time. But there are some influential politicians who would like to see accession take place tomorrow. Tomorrow, literally. But what seems to be a problem? When they talk about enlargement, they talk about building bridges, tunnels, highways, railways. They are not talking about core values of European Union, respecting human rights, rule of law, combating organized crime, nourishing freedom of the press. Very influential guys in Commission. Of course, supported by some member states who would like to see their autocratic neighbor in the European Union between Monday and Friday. It can go, of course. So I think we not be seduced by such promises. I think it's a very demanding process, very demanding, and it will be more demanding. When Croatia started process acquis communautaire, famous set of books every accession country need to swallow, had around 40,000 pages. Now it's 85,000. So my another favorite saying is that it was much easier to establish European Economic Community in 57 than enter European Union in third decade of 21st century. But that it is, in a way. But momentum is here. Despite all problems of internal nature, I think there is still chance, there is still window of opportunity to see enlargement in the next couple of the days. Some of you mentioned key dates, target dates, setting benchmark in the future. It's all okay. It's all okay. Even we here in the European Parliament mentioned in one document I got a privilege to draft that all current negotiation talks should be ended before 2030, 2028 or 2027. Bojan gave a pretty realistic picture, what does it really mean, ratification and so on. But the only historic day is only one, when countries entering European Union. The only one. Don't stick with the dates. It's very dangerous because it's not easy to foresee what might happen in Europe and immediate neighborhood tomorrow. But momentum anyway is here, and I would like to conclude by saying that it's very important to see who will imprint in political sense enlargement process. That's the reason why we, as a Socialist and Democrats, would like to be more active. Because there is a conservatives, liberals, green policy, far left, far right, and we are competing in a way, because future of European Union is inevitably connected with the type of enlargement. There's a competition within European Union. You know that some countries don't want another country because they think that that country may, let's say, lift influence of some other member states. It's geopolitics within European Union. And we know that it's also the truth. But I think it can go together. I think I don't need to prove anyone that any enlargement is in a way reforming European Union. It's not isolated. Big Bang was a big reform. 10 countries joined the European Union. You know, it's a very important undertaking of the European Union at that time. I would like to see European Union tomorrow be same courageous to do, if not the same move, but the move which in a way bring prosperity and the peace to the Western Balkans countries, first of all, and then Eastern neighborhood countries, Moldova, Ukraine, and of course give it perspective for Georgia as well, because European Union must remain an open project. If not, we are in trouble. So I believe in mission of the European Union, and I would like to see European Union to play the same role in the Western Balkans like it plays on the Western Europe. And we know what does it mean for the generations, the people who get that, in a way, chance and be happy to live in the Western Europes. While we, many of us sitting here around the desk and you, we were with something else, and we in then Yugoslavia, we were lucky one. We were lucky one, if we compare it to some other Eastern countries of the bloc. So, the history is not, let's say, limited with some wishes. It's an open process, and the enlargement must be part of it. I got one speaker here. It's a Professor Ilhan Uzgel. He's online. Sir, we want to hear from you.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes. Excellent.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm very happy to participate in this seminar. Let me introduce our party. The CHP, the Republican People's Party, is the oldest party in Turkey. It commemorates its 100th anniversary this year. But unfortunately, it has lost elections in the last 2 decades, except the local elections in 4 years ago, where it won almost the biggest cities in Turkey. So it's a founding party. We have a new convention last month, and we have a new leadership. Our delegates elected a new leadership. So we have a younger and energetic leader of the party, which pays special attention to representation of women. We pay special attention to that, where we have appointed 8 women to the executive board of the party, which has 18 members, which means half of its executive board composed of women. And its party assembly is relatively younger compared to previous ones, which has average age of 43. I know that could have been better, but still it's better. We wholeheartedly support Turkey's membership in the EU. We are in favor of EU enlargement process, of course. We don't consider it as a technical process, and we consider it as a historical social orientation and part of Turkey's westernization and modernization efforts. But we find the current state of EU-Turkish relations quite unsatisfactory and even harmful against the interests of the Turkish people. As you know, accession process has been stalled for some time. Turkey is the oldest candidate country which signed the Ankara Agreement back in 1964, nearly 60 years ago. And it has started accession process negotiations in 2005, but they stalled somehow. The responsibility of the current stalemate lies both in Turkish and the EU side. I should be frank with you. And I should remind you that the recent joint communication to the European Council contains some positive elements, but it's still far from reigniting the stalled negotiations. Why we are here? We're against the refugee deal reached by the EU and the Erdogan government, which turned the relations from a value-based to a transactional type of bargaining, indeed. So this is one of the reasons that the negotiations between Turkey and the EU has stalled or stopped. Of course, there are other reasons regarding the Cyprus issue and democratization, but at the core of the relationship lies this type of bargaining between the EU and the Erdogan government. And this deal, first of all, is kind of an unethical one, because according to this agreement, Turkey accepted to host nearly 4 million refugees, mostly from Syria, in return for material gains such as customs union modernization or visa facilitation. I mean, on the one hand, you have human beings who fled a war-torn country. And on the other hand, you're making a bargain with customs union. I mean, customs union versus the human life. So at the core of it, which is we don't find it humane, ethical, and it of course it's a very practical deal which functions for the good of both sides, Turkish government, I mean, and the EU. But there are serious problems with that I'm going to remind you some of them. First of all, this deal led Turkey's democratic backsliding. The EU in general, and Germany in particular, of course, Germany played a critical role in it, have become more tolerant in the face of human rights violations in Turkey. And the AKP government had more leverage suppressing the civil society, free media, and free speech. And even the conditionality has been appended, that it has turned into a reverse conditionality, that Erdogan has gained more leverage towards the EU. And secondly, under the AKP government, and after this deal was reached, Turkey has been politically moved away from Europe, from the EU. And thirdly, with around 5 million refugees from Syria and Afghanistan, and with a population of already 85 million plus 5 million, that makes 90 million. But I don't mean that they're all Turkish citizens now, but around 100,000 of them were given citizenship. But that's a huge number to be accepted by the EU, to be realistic. So as a party, we do not have an anti-immigration position, but we consider this immigration, the number of refugees in Turkey, as a problem, because for every society, if you have nearly 4 million refugees within 2 years, it creates some social problems which have not been addressed properly by the government so far. So we consider it as a social problem, but we're not anti-refugee. And we do not want to tear down the deal if we come to power, but there is a need to renegotiate it in a proper way, in a more humane way. So it doesn't necessarily mean that if or when we come to power, we don't have we have local elections coming in March, but not the general elections. But the Turkish politics is so dynamic, you don't know what's going to happen soon. We're not going to open the gates and send all the refugees into Europe, but this would have other problems and other consequences for those people and for the EU, but it has to be renegotiated in any way. Well, despite existing problems and issues, interestingly, there is a growing aspiration on the part of especially young people for EU membership. I just recall our colleague from Serbia said that the support for EU membership in Serbia is decreasing over the years, but it's not decreasing in Turkey. Despite that, there's no light for Turkey to be a full member, even to start negotiations, especially among the young people. I mean, basically, the support for EU membership in Turkey, on average, is around 65%. It has never been less than 60%. But it is especially among the young people, youngsters, that EU membership is around, support for EU membership is around 72% or something. I don't think that this is because they want to get jobs or a better life standard, but it's also about the culture wars that we're undergoing in Turkey, that secular versus religious, etc., that the secular lifestyles are under pressure in Turkey, so they want to have free speech, they want to live their lives. So it has both ways. Of course, there's economic problems, but this is not the only reason that there's a support for EU membership in Turkey. So we are realistic about the prospects of Turkey's full membership, but we, as a party, we want to forge closer ties with the EU we find it as a must, as an imperative to foster democracy and respect for human rights and rule of law in Turkey. That means closer ties bring some more democratic conditionality that we have lost for some time. We're also against the EU's approach that highlights Turkey's strategic location and considers Turkey as a strategic partner in a turbulent region and in increasing the global uncertainties. What we stand for is going back to a value-based, principled relationships. But the problem is that to what extent the EU is ready to see a Turkey that is ruled by a government that pays attention to democratization or respects human rights, and once value-based and principled relationship rather than transactionalism. That's the point that we should discuss, I guess. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Professor, for your contribution, because talking about EU enlargement without taking a broad perspective on enlargement coming from the Turkey, of course, is not complete, of course. But nevertheless, S&D Seminar EU Enlargement is almost closed. We are about to end. And I think it could be common conclusion that it does not mean that EU enlargement process is about to end anytime soon, because it would be, in a way, contrary to the very core of idea of the European Union. Don't forget, it had started as a gathering of the six. Of course, in order to achieve very modest set of the goals, putting under the control only two substances, coal and steel, important elements for waging a war in time of 50 years ago. And I think the European Union must find its new mission in 21st century, because I think it's the single most important project in entire European history. But now the question is what Europeans need to put under the control this time. Steel and coal? Maybe, I don't think so. Something of even more valuable substance. First of all, I think we need to put under the control of very dangerous political ideas, because they are again among us. And they are threatening not only European Union, but liberal democracy, social democracy, and civil society in a way. And if we can do that, if we can put under the control that dangerous set of ideas, maybe we can talk about European Union of tomorrow, improved, reformed, but by no means enlarged in a way. So I don't know when next country, Western Balkans or Eastern Partnership, would join European Union. I think that European Union then will be in a way different than it is now. Hope for the better. Let's give our fair share to that process, no matter whether we are already in European Union or we are about to be tomorrow. Thank you once again for your contributions and coming to Brussels.